About 6 o'clock, so we're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order, the first meeting for the year of 2019, and welcome to everyone, and we'll turn it over to you, Dr. Howard.
Very good, thank you so much. I want to welcome everyone, and we're going to try very diligently to not talk too fast, but we do have a lot to cover tonight, some really important topics. I have several comments, and I'd like to start with telling the board how much I appreciate their continued support of Vigil Charter High School, which, as you know, serves second chance students at East Jackson High. And we have some presenters here, so if y'all can go ahead and come up, we'll share. You can stand wherever you're comfortable. Amanda, they have a PowerPoint that I pulled up, and so and I did tell them, and I want you to know, if they talk fast, it's our fault, because we have several presentations this evening, and we asked them to keep it to about 5 minutes so that we can.
And we have a timer.
And it's not an association of the value at all. We truly value Foothills. We just have a stacked agenda, but we're thrilled that you're here. So thank you for sharing some updates.
I am Mary Ann Hale, one of the site directors. I am blessed to be one of the originals that actually helped start Jackson Foothills. Knew about it for a long time before we started.
And I'm Rachel Palm, the co-site director at Jackson, and we started together. So we've been with Foothills since they opened. So we're pretty excited to be here tonight to share with you.
This is our fourth year, and the purpose, was Dr. Howard said, was to give students a second chance. And when we first opened, it was pretty confusing for people. They thought more of us as an alternative school, and we definitely are not an alternative school. If students have any kind of discipline from their other school, they can't come to us. So it's just a way for them to get their high school diploma in another setting. We have grown, as you can see. The board has a package, actually, and this is shared, but we started with just a few sites, and what happened is the superintendents from these sites or the prison had to meet with Dr. Gimme Sherman, and they had to agree, your board agreed to be our partner. And so they welcomed us with open arms, into a building for them. And so we started and we grew. People loved Foothills because we were making such a difference. And then in 2017, we opened another. It's really weird because this is a state prison and this is a state prison. So there are 3 state prisons now. And then we've gone 2017 and now 2018. We keep expanding, and now the Georgia National Guard, the Youth Challenge Program, we are part of. They asked us to take over. The results were not what they wanted, And so we are not a individual school. All of our data that we submit to the state is for all of our sites together. So we are one school. That's why we're called site directors, not principals, And not that this really matters, but we started with Mountain Ed. Mountain Ed has been in business for over 25 years, And so Dr. Gimme Sherman, our superintendent, was a site director, and people kept asking Mountain Ed to expand, and they were like, we can't anymore, we're not. So Dr. Gimme Sherman wrote the charter and opened Foothills. And after that, they keep expanding more, and so South Georgia needed us, and we said, we will not go that far, but we will help you. And so we will be consultants for you. So we just, like I said, keep opening and opening. So it's wonderful. The big thing about us, people call us on a regular basis and said, is this a regular high school diploma? Is it a GED program? It is a true high school diploma with HOPE grant they can get. We have our SACS accredited advanced ed, and we are now even NCAA, which is a big thing for some of our students. And it took a lot of work. Absolutely. Dr. Howard is actually our board chair for Foothills, so she is pretty knowledgeable about it, and so she knows how much work it took. And that once again helped some of our students. We had a student from East Jackson High School that was not going to graduate. He missed it. He had a full scholarship waiting for him for basketball, didn't graduate by 1 class. But because we are now NCAA, he was able to come to us, take his math class, went through it all, got a nice grade, and is now in college playing basketball. And that's a big thing for us, for those reasons. We are partners. We're partners. This is just our data. When we feel, through our data, that we have definitely helped the graduation rates, in our county. because they are our kids. And so while they may not make it in the traditional school, and they may have at that point where they're just gonna cost us, then they can come to us, and as you can see, graduation rates have definitely increased. Both high school principals are very supportive of us. Jefferson now is a big proponent, and Commerce would even actually like us to be in their school. So every day it gets bigger.
So right now, the Jackson site, we have, and we're located at East Jackson High School, and on the upper level, right now we have about 158 students, although we've enrolled several this week, so we probably have more like 160.
Yeah, we have
2-ish.
Yeah, when we started coming back, we had 21 appointments within the first week and a half, and we had 5 new people like calling every day.
And every student, when they come in, they meet with Marianne or myself, and as they enroll, so that we can go over everything with them. But right now we have around 158. It's probably more like 162, I'm guessing. We've had 72 students that have graduated with us. So, and just the 18, 19, this is since August, really. Is that right? Yeah. We've had 30 graduate. And we actually do one graduation for Jackson that we hold in the auditorium at East Jackson High School. And then there are 2 regional graduations, one that is held in August and the other that's held in December, so that because when a student finishes with us, they're done that night. And there's usually a lot of happiness happening at Vigil. We just had a student that graduated that's been with us since we opened, that came from Jackson County, and she got up. It was so heartwarming at the ceremony because she talked about her struggles and how she just could not, you know, because she had been in a lot of trouble and things like that, and then she came to us, and we just pushed her along, and finally she was able to graduate. And while she was with us, she got married, she had a baby, and now she's on her way to.
And she's taking her classes actually during enrollment at Athens Tech,
right,
with us.
So,
and
it's one of those heartwarming stories because she was a hellion. I mean, the teachers that have had her, like she will say, I was so horrible, had a horrible life and all that, and so she's, you know.
And she's one that had actually dropped out that we called in the beginning, because when we started, we called dropouts. That's how we were calling them up, hey, you know, you want to try something new. And a lot of the students we knew because we had either taught them, this student I had taught, and that's how she got in, was we had called her and we kept calling her, you know, beating down her door, come in. So anyway, total Foothills, this is our total data of graduates. You know, you can see it's just increasing, and since August, we've had 119 that have graduated.
And part of that is anytime you open a new school, you learn as you go along. And so we had kids could come in and they could take 3 years to finish a class if they needed to. And then it shortened to a year. And in our site, they have less than that now. They have A and the B part, and we've shortened it to 60 days. And we have seen a huge increase in our EOC scores and meta classes that are finished. And people are coming to school, doing school instead of playing school.
So we have a lot of academic support. We have a tutoring program. We also have steps that they have to take before they get into the EOCs. We have special ed directors, a lot of student incentives, data teams, instructional coaches. Marianne and myself oversee the instructional coaching program for all of the Foothills sites, and that's been wonderful because along with that we have a teacher induction program. So when new teachers come in, they are trained to be a teacher at Foothills. A lot of our teachers come from around, they're from Jackson County, from East Jackson, from Banks. So a lot of our students know the teachers when they get there. So we also have a student support services.
And this is probably really and truly, guys, this is the difference maker. And Dr. Morris back there is one of our mentors and has been from the beginning.
And so we have graduation coaches, we have counselors, we have a social worker, and her main job lately has been going out and saying, hey, why are you not at school? So she goes out pretty much every day and meets with families. We have career specialists. We're about to hold our next career fair. Are we at 1 minute? You're
So far.
Did I miss this?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'll speed up. So we also have dual enrollment. We provide meals. Dr. Morris provides meals for our students once a month, and so that's wonderful.
And we have other churches that do the same thing.
Several churches
The
in them.
communities have really supported us, and think about it, if you are a student and you have a mentor and they are gonna meet with you once a week, you've got that one-on-one. And the difference in our mentoring program than Lindsay's Legacy, which is a new name for it, I know, but which is a wonderful program, and my husband was part of it, is they are actual employees of ours, and we do that so they can actually see their records and the academic part of it a little bit more.
And we even have backpack kids at our school. Yes. So anyway, we're done. We went over a little bit.
As you can tell, we absolutely love what we do. We love Foothills. And if you are ever at East Jackson High School at night, don't worry about an invitation. You're always invited. Anyone in this room, just walk, you'll see our entrance in the back of the building, and just walk up and walk through the building. We would love to have you'd be so surprised what you'll see. Kids are very focused.
Absolutely.
And we'll give you a tour anytime you want to come.
Thank you.
Your hours
Thank you for letting us go.
play.
Our hours are Monday through Thursday, 4 to 9.
And we follow the Jackson County School schedule for the most part.
And thank you for letting us go a little bit over.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, never thought.
I'm proud to serve as a part of that team that leads that work, and I'll tell you a couple of things they've mentioned, but I want to reiterate. Those students do take an EOC, and so they have to meet the same, if not higher standards than any other organization. The other piece of that, Foothills has partnered with the Empower College and Career Center, so those students will soon have access to all the offerings that will be in Empower. So
We are so excited
that's
about
going to be
that.
great. So thank you, ladies, very much. We didn't mean to rush you. We appreciate it.
No, we understand.
Did a good job.
That's why we gave you packages, so there's a lot more data you can.
There's data in there from Jackson site specifically on how well we're doing on the EOCs.
Yeah, great.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
y'all have a great night.
You too. Have a good evening. Just very quickly, the only other comments that I'd like to make, we made a commitment since we have new board members, and quite honestly, it's just a good practice that periodically we review our policies, and so we decided to take a couple of sections each month, and so with your blessing, dear Amanda has made notebooks for each of you, and in your notebook, if you'll open to the first page, you will see that she's given you a list of all of our existing policies, and we're going to start with sections A and B. We're not going to read through those at board meetings, but I'd like for you in the next month, if you don't mind, to find some time to read through just sections A and B. That should be about 10 policies. They're pretty easy to read through, and just make any notes. This is a work in progress for all of us. If there's anything that you read in the policy that you would like for us to consider, these are your board policies. So you can certainly bring to this group some revisions or recommendations that you may have. Some of them will, may require legal expertise if we want to make some significant changes, but if you will take some time to look through A and B, and then we will talk about A and B at the next work session and introduce C and D for the next. So we'll just take like 2 sections at a time. And then you'll see in your minutes there, February 7th is our scheduled work session for the month of February. And again, with your blessing, we'd like to consider this the next 2-hour training for the board and partner with the Empower College and Career Board. This would be the first time that those two boards are together. And I think it's very important that you know who each other are and are able to partner in the work. Technically, the Empower Board falls underneath the local Board of Education because they are really overseeing a program, but the work is very complementary. So they have to have official training. They fall under the same sunshine laws and open meetings and all of that we do. So I want there to be some joint partnership there. So that'll be a 2-hour training, and I will be sending you the agenda as soon as that is complete. I'm meeting with Dr. Cook and Mr. David McCurry tomorrow to finalize that agenda, and I'll send it to you before. And then we asked you to tentatively reserve February the 8th, and that is for our preliminary, what we refer to as our spring retreat. We will not have all details for personnel and budget because it's a little early, but we'll have some preliminary information. But most importantly, Mr. Nicholson is going to make sure that you're prepared for our accreditation visit, which is March 3rd through the 6th. So that is already on your calendar. And just a quick reminder that we have our Teachers of the Year to be recognized at our Monday night board meeting, which will be at East Jackson High School. So that's a very important and exciting night. So I did ask each of our departments to have as many staff members as they could here tonight, so I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Nicholson and let him make sure that folks that are here are introduced and recognize at least name and face.
Most certainly. So we have many of our teaching and learning folks, which includes our technology team. I'm going to start in this corner over here, the man behind the camera. If you just, everybody stand up, introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and we'll just kind of work away around the room this way. So, Mr. Rusty.
Rusty Vandervoort, network administrator, and work for that guy right there.
That guy right there is?
I'm Michael Summer, technology coordinator for the district. Welcome aboard.
Let's come back to Kat.
My name is Kat Flippen. I am your coordinator of personalized learning and innovation.
I'm Martha Wilson. I'm the director of SIS and assessment.
I'm Todd Schultz. I'm the CTA director, which is career tech.
These are two other very important people, but they're not teaching learning, so we'll go back over here to Katie.
I'm Katie Warwick, I teach World Math.
I'm Deborah Riddleberger, I'm the science coordinator, and I've been with Jackson County since 2004, and I love every bit of it.
And we love you.
I'm Linda Bell, and I'm director of federal programs and director of pre-K.
Let's come back around here to Mr. Johnson.
Troy Johnson, the director of continuous school improvement and accountability.
Also equally as important people, but not teaching learning.
GME Smith, special director.
And in the back corner, we have the rest of our special.
And I'm Becky Edge, I'm the special ed coordinator for middle school and high school.
And I'm Tammy Simpson Shirley, I'm the special education coordinator for elementary schools.
And who are you?
Todd Nicholson, Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, and we just wanted you to associate a face with the name, and incredibly grateful that you have over the years supported the fact that this used to be a very slim operation, and we over time have been able to add just slowly folks to really be able to ensure that we're providing everything that we're going to talk about in our next meeting, which is the strategic goals of quality academic experience, personalizing learning, and preparing for the future. With that said, see, I'm going quickly. That being said, we have more information than we could possibly share with you, but there are some timely pieces that we do want to share. So we've asked Mr. Johnson to give you a brief update on our MAP data. MAP is the assessment system that we use so that we don't have to wait until the end of this year, and actually not the end of the year, we don't have to wait to the beginning of the next year for milestone data. This is the data we use real in time to.
You're using my time.
Hey, don't start your timer now.
Well, as Mr. Nicholson said, MAP stands for Measurement of Academic Progress, and I think most all of y'all either have your own children or grandchildren that currently are a student at one of our schools that is using MAP, because currently we utilize it grades kindergarten through 8th grade. What's great about it, and I look through the lens as a past principal, it's an adaptive assessment. So what it does, the first time a student takes the assessment, it gives them questions that start out on their grade level, and based on how the student performs, either by getting questions right, it's going to raise the level of that question and move them up. And if a student was to struggle with the question, it would lower the level of question. So whereas in traditional formative testing where they would test students throughout the year, that testing would be geared towards a kid's instructional level. So for example, first graders would see and only see first grade level questions. Well, you can have a first grader that may actually be working on geometry standards that can get them into the 3rd grade level. And then also subsequently, they may be working on some numbers and operation standards or fraction standards that may show that they're at a kindergarten level. So it gives parents like myself and yourselves, along with teachers, a depth of understanding and knowledge related to math, reading, and language arts to be able to support your students. So it looks past the borders of a particular grade level and looks across that entire continuum of learning. Just a little FAQ section there. I won't read through that. That's for your information, but I think I talked through most pieces of those. We do give the assessments in fall, winter, and spring. What we're going to be previewing with you tonight is our preliminary MAP growth data. We started our window for winter around mid-November. Our intention was to be finished by December. However, with flu season coming around, we had some of our friends, especially at elementary, that didn't get a chance to finish, and we didn't want to rush them through. So we opened the window back up for Monday of this week through Friday for any kids that need to do some makeup testing. And so we've got the preliminary growth data. What I'll point to, for example, with math to start off with, The blue bar is the amount of growth that we have by grade level. And the diamond represents the projections of where those grade levels should be based on their fall student performance data. So when we look across here, we're doing extremely well with our kindergartners in their growth and most subsequent growth in second grades and also in sixth. And we noticed a little lower performance than we want to see in fifth. But those are some areas where we saw a little bit of change. Now, one thing that we can attribute some of the second grade level to, the second grade test is not read to the students. The kindergarten and the first grade test is read by the computer. Once the student gets to a certain reading level, it's kind of like training wheels. It actually then tells them to take off their headsets because they're at that independent reading level. But this year whereas years in the past we had it read to our second graders, we said we wanted to raise the standards and we wanted to have all of our second graders start out from an independent level because that's when you really want kids to start transitioning. So by the third grade, they can read independently. And it gives us a look across the grade level. It doesn't penalize a student, but it does give us a good understanding about how that student is doing in terms of their reading. And even though it's a mathematics test, it does, some of our kids, for example, and Dr. Works here, she can tell you we've got second graders right now that are already showing that they're ready for some fourth and fifth grade skills related to math, especially in the areas of geometry. So it gives us a good look in terms of that growth piece. Just a subsequent look, looking at growth. This is a little bit different. Here we're looking at cohorts, and let me just kind of point you in the direction. When we talk about cohort, we're talking about looking at one group of kids from year over year. So instead of going across and looking at kindergarten to kindergarten, we're looking at the district kindergarten to first grade, first to second, because we're looking at the growth. What you can see right here, this is the growth of students last year from fall to winter. Here's the growth from fall to winter for this year. So we did notice a little bit of a dip between over the entire district. Last year we were at 63% of our students had growth in kindergarten. And when I say growth, all students were growing. That mark is actually showing that students were on track at that time for a year's worth of growth. So last year we were a little bit higher. We noticed a little bit of a dip. When we look down the other grade levels, we see that we actually showed increases over last year. Your benchmark, when you're looking at that, just to give you an idea, the national norm tends to be right at 50%. So when we look at the district, we're well above 50% in almost every grade level except second grade. But we also know, like we mentioned there, that's when it's not read to them anymore. They're having to read that independently. So 48% is a pretty strong performance when we've got that test being read independently. When you look at 8th grade, I do want to point something out because even though we did have a 1% dip, it's worth mentioning at East Jackson High School versus West Jackson Middle School. West Jackson Middle School utilizes MAP with all of their 8th grade students, accelerated to non-accelerated students. East Jackson High School does not utilize it with the students that are taking the high school level equivalent course. So that does affect their growth data. So when you see that number there, just to kind of point some things out. I know this is new to a lot of y'all, so if you ever have any questions, y'all can email me or call me. We've got the same information for reading. And I will point out, we did notice a little bit of a dip in first grade over what we've seen past performance-wise in third grade. We did put in a new language arts reading program this year with the Fontes and Pinnell system, so we anticipated seeing a little bit of a performance dip. It's something we're going to continue to watch and work closely with. We're providing professional learning to our teachers and support through them, and also at the school levels. And here's the subsequent chart that goes along with it. And then we've got your language arts. So MAP lets us look at growth, but it not only lets us look at growth, it lets us look at achievement. And I'm going to leave you with this. When we look at grades 3 through 8th grade, what we can create is a predictor. So we can look at, for example, and see if students were to take the milestones during this winter window, we can look and see how many of those students would be on track for passing the milestones. So this is level 1 on the milestones, level 2, level 3, and level 4. The purple is last year, the green is this year. So what we see for our math student performance based on winter, we see more green in these top 2 levels, which is what we want to see. That's the levels 3 and 4, which means that we're showing a shift of math performance towards the better. So we anticipate seeing higher milestone scores for grades 3 through 8 this year based on that preliminary MAP data. In language arts, like we said, we noticed a little bit of a decline in 1st and 3rd grade. And for our 3rd grade students, we can see it showing up in our district data because we actually see our levels 1 go down, which is what we want to see. Those are those kids at the beginning level. We want to see students performing better. Our level 4, our highest level, is about the same, but we see a little bit of a change from our levels 2 and 3. We have a few more students, about 3.5% showing performance at level 2 this year than we did this time last year. The good thing is we're still midterm through the year, so we've got lots of time for adjustments. But we'll monitor this in fall, mid-year, and the end of the year, and then our teachers are utilizing this data to drive their daily instruction and their grading groups. So thank you. That's our MAP update. Hopefully when we have our next meeting in February, we'll be able to share more of the achievement data because we'll be closing the window down tomorrow and we'll have those final results in.
So may I ask a question?
You sure may.
So what about the students that test above their level? Are there programs in place for them?
That's a great question. Each one of our schools is working with that. For example, I can tell you the school that I was principal at prior to changing positions at West Jackson Elementary, they have been working to identify accelerated content and through their gifted programs, offering opportunities for kids to extend. Other schools are doing it more so through differentiation within the classes and class periods. Maysville, for example, this past year noticed that they had a group of 3rd grade students going into 4th grade that were showing extremely high performance, and they have actually created a cohort group where they have the gifted teacher goes in and pushes in with those regular ed students and some of their other counterparts. So we're really redefining how we look at acceleration. So when you were still in high school and I started teaching years and years ago, differentiation was you were in the regular class or the advanced or the honors class. Students aren't penalized from that standpoint. You don't have to be in the honors class or advanced class. Several of our schools, we have situations where we may have a 2nd grader that goes down to a 3rd grade class for math, or going across the hall and teachers are tagging back and forth and shifting kids back and forth based on the needs. And those needs, instead of waiting to the end of the year to address for next year, those needs are being shifted and changed weekly to monthly. So it's much more fluid and flexible. So
great
question.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Johnson? I will say that we've come a long way with MAP when we started. We just did it recently, an instructional roll call where we were asking for feedback from all our teachers about the different instructional resources that we provide and wanted them to give us a value statement. And MAP was the highest value statement. That would not have been the case 3 years ago, but as we have implemented and people have started to realize that your question is perfect because it provides that learning continuum so that in the moment you can then change the instruction, whether somebody's not being pushed enough, whether we're not supporting them in their remediation efforts, and it's becoming a part of our culture now. And it's taken this amount of time to do it, but and as I've shared with the board before, we are part of a state pilot that we've submitted to the U.S. Department of Education to essentially, if we could, replace our milestone assessment system with the MAP assessment system so that you actually don't just wait till the end of the year and say, here's your one chance to show us what you know, versus let's see what you know in the fall, let's see what you've learned in the winter, and then let's see again in the spring. That's out of our hands right now. We've submitted the application, we'll see, but we're committed towards this type of approach to making sure that we're constantly assessing the students in a meaningful way so that we can modify the instructional experience for them. Next, I believe we have Ms. Kat Flippin, and she's going to talk a little bit about our Chromebook one-to-one rollout grant, which has been supported over the last couple of years, and it's very exciting to see where we've come with that as well. So, Ms. Flippin.
Well, to keep it short and sweet, I wanted to give y'all, especially new board members, a reference to understand what one-to-one was and why we use Chromebooks and some history on that matter. We've been growing significantly with one-to-one, which is wonderful. That helps put in our students' hands the world, essentially. It helps to enhance the breadth and depth of their educational experience. And Chromebooks are really fiscally conservative. And they link right in with Google Apps for Education, which is what we use for a lot of our educational need purposes, including email. So it's very easy for us to manage technologically. It's easy for us to proliferate as well, because every student K-12 has a Google Apps Education account. We started in Jackson County considering Chromebooks when we went with Google. I think about 2015 we started considering it and started implementing it that year. And in 2016 we had our first major purchase of Chromebooks. And since then we've been adding, I think, 1,000 every year or so. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Nicholson. And then we started implementing classroom grants. So if you've been watching any of the board meetings, we've talked about that often. And essentially it's a competitive grant. It uses an application process plus a rigorous lesson plan that is actually graded. It's a peer review, a blind peer review by people from outside our system will score their grants, and they are the people who get awarded a class set of Chromebooks. We started that way to be able to support the teachers who are most ready to move forward. We didn't want to necessarily just dole out Chromebooks for people who weren't ready. We wanted the people who were ready to go ahead and be the torchbearers of one-to-one in our district, and thus far it has been significant. So on the back of the paper that I handed you and for the audience here in the room, this is before the last grant that we held, and that's a percentage. So one-to-one, of course, is one device per one student. And before our last grant, which was I think 1,500, we were at this point right here, which is 55% toward one-to-one. After that last grant round, we ended up bumping up there. So that's when West Jackson Middle discovered, oh, hey, we are actually one-to-one. So over the summer, we sat down with Dr. Conway and her team and designed a daily schedule so students would pick up their Chromebooks at the beginning of the day and drop them off at the end. And thus far, it's gone incredibly smoothly. They were kind of our pilot school for this, but they had such motivated faculty. 19 people applied for round 2, and that's how they were able to achieve one-to-one. We have other schools, as you can tell, who are significantly close, and as of now, I pulled some numbers this morning, they're significantly closer. So South Jackson, because they've been using their own Title I funding and their school funding, they're officially one-to-one as well. And everybody else is getting fairly close. So holding another grant will help bump us closer. We will be actually at 91% once we have another round of purchases for Chromebooks, which is phenomenal. At that point, we'd only have 754 left for us to be fully one-to-one as a district, which is awesome. Now, if we take into consideration our growth, we know that there's going to be a point where we have to keep on adding, and that's actually why some of the numbers have increased as well. Our west side, we've had to keep on adding. Mr. Summer here has been wonderful in keeping up with putting those in students' hands. So we're that close, which is wonderful. And because of y'all's decision as a board to approach purchasing Chromebooks in this kind of paced manner, we'll be able, once we have to re-up our Chromebooks every 5 years, Chromebooks have to be replaced. It actually works out perfectly where once we are actually one-to-one, that's when we have to consider a replacement cycle. It matches up perfectly. So I'm very thrilled about that, and the fact that we're that close, that fast, and students are really enjoying it so far. So if you have any questions, we're open to talk about it, and we do want to pursue the next round of Chromebook grant. I think that it's on the budget for May.
It's in the budget for May. And I talked with Anna. She couldn't be here this evening, but I talked with her because with your blessing, if we could move that purchase up a few months, then that would allow us to have the Chromebooks in time for assessment. And that's not the reason why we purchased them, but it certainly would help us with not having to shift computers around from location to location. And when I talked to her, she said in terms of the cash flow, that would be fine, but we would just want to make sure that we had your blessing to do that. We've set the spring as our deadline, or as our target point, so that we can get the devices in the teachers' hands before they leave for the end of the school year, so that they know that they have them, they can become familiar with them. But if we could just kind of bring that back a few months, that would be wonderful, and I would certainly value you considering that as an option.
That would be about a 250 to 300.
That's what we have.
And that would be how many?
1,000.
1,000, okay.
It would put East Jackson Middle School at one-to-one.
Yeah.
At that point.
And like I said, it's in the budget, it's just more so, can we move forward a little bit? So that would be something that if you would consider, we would certainly love your support on that. All right, thank you. Any questions about Chromebooks one-to-one grant? Wonderful. Well, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time because we're going to have some time together in February to talk about Advanced Ed. I've put a packet in here for you so that you can become familiar with it. essentially, there are three things in here. The top is Advanced Ed Performance Standards, and that is what they will report out back to us. There's leadership capacity, learning capacity, and resource capacity. And it's just as they've done in the past, they'll come in, they will look at our narratives, our data, our survey data, our performance data. They'll visit schools, they'll do interviews, and then they'll provide an exit report, and then 30 to 90 days later, we'll get our complete report. But it's just, it changes every 5 years. So for those of you that have been through it before, it's different again. So I wanted you to see, you don't have to do anything with this right now. I just wanted you to become familiar with it. And past those pages, there's something called the Advanced Ed System Assurances. These are things that we have to have for our accreditation. Those have already been taken care of. We've already done them, and I just want you to see what they are. And really in February, the idea is we want to be able to spend time catching you up to speed. You are in our narrative because every single standard starts with the governing authority. And one of the things that we've written in repetitively is that at the point of our visit, 60% of our board will be new. And so we have a conversation tomorrow with our lead evaluator, and I want to know what specifically would he like to be able to elicit from his conversations and interviews with you. It's not really fair that you've not been a part of these conversations for many years. And so what I will be able to do in February is to provide you with some very specific guidance in terms of what to expect and where we have kind of rated ourselves out as a school system. But I do want to call your attention to Monday, March 4th. I believe the time is largely negotiable, but the day probably is not because they're visiting from multiple states. That is the day that they have requested to interview with our board. I believe we could probably do it as a whole group. If we had to, we could do some phone conversations. Like I said, I don't think the time is specific, but if you would check your schedules and either let Dr. Howard or myself know if that's going to be a major conflict for you, because I do know they want to be able to, some form or fashion, and it's 45 minutes if we're total. So if we need to move that to the end of the day, I'm sure that they'll be very flexible with that. But if you look at your calendars and let me know, that would be wonderful. And otherwise, we'll spend some time on the 8th of February getting very familiar with Advanced Ed.
Yes.
That's all we have for teaching and learning leadership.
Lots of great information. Thank you so much, Dr. Blankenship, Human Resources.
All right, so I'm going to try to beat Mr. Nicholson's time tonight and be brief, but we have some very important pieces to share with you. The first thing on the agenda is, of course, the attendance and enrollment overviews, and I won't spend a lot of time on those. Not a lot of change in our enrollment. Just highlight that East Jackson Elementary had the highest attendance for the month, and you'll notice that Gum Springs was a little bit lower than it normally is, but they were hit very hard with the flu in December, and so that's likely the reason for that. Next are our personnel recommendations, and I will be sending you that list for review in the morning and sharing that with you. And of course, feel free to call me or to email me if you have any concerns. I'll be happy, or questions. I'll be happy to answer those. But I would like to call on Sean Lindsay, our athletic director for East Jackson High School, because we have some a very exciting recommendation to make and have an action item on the agenda tonight for your approval. So, Mr. Lindsay, if you'd like to come on.
Hello.
Hello.
Very nice to meet you. For the first time, I think most of you I haven't seen, so welcome aboard, and we appreciate what you do for us, for sure. So we are recommending Coach Cameron Pettis to take on the role of our new head football coach at East Jackson High School, and are excited about this change in position at our school. And he will also be leading our strength conditioning program there. We have thoroughly enjoyed the process of getting to find the right fit for East Jackson High School and the community of East Jackson. It is a tough task. We know that. We know it's not something that's going to change overnight, and we took our time making sure that we found the right personality and the right person that has proven work ethic to reach and develop great relationships with our kids and our community, and do the things from the ground up to really build a solid foundation for our football program. So we're excited to get him on board, and we hope that you we'll just give you a little brief bio there. He is a Georgia native, and so he is coming back home. He spent, well, first of all, he's married and he's got a 10-year-old daughter that will be coming with him, and will attend our school over there, East Jackson Middle School. She'll be a 6th grader next year, so we're excited. She's also a student athlete. Coach Pettis spent 7 years coaching at a college in Illinois, and was a director of strength conditioning there, and has been at the same high school since he left there for 12 years. 4 of those were as a defensive coordinator, and the last 8 years he's been the head coach there. So he's not a guy that likes to jump around from place to place. He has certainly proven that he can build a winning culture and program there where he is. But as everybody's lives change, he's made it a priority to get back close to home. To his folks are still living, and he's got siblings that are in Georgia, and so we're just excited that he's sought us out and likes our community and will fit right in with what we're after. So I hope that you all would agree with that, with your blessing, and we'll get ready to get started on January 22nd, getting this guy going.
I was going to ask you how soon he'd be.
He's going to be here January 22nd if everything goes through tonight, and I'm assuming or hopeful that it will, because he has resigned his position and is ready to vote. I've already started helping him pack, and he's 8 hours away. So they'll be here this weekend, and we'll get to actually get our community to meet him face to face and family face to face, so that everybody can get to know him a little better before we get really going with him on the 22nd. All right. Any questions about the process or the person?
I trust that you, if we have the board's support tonight and they approve this, that they're welcome to the 2 o'clock meet and greet on Sunday.
Absolutely, everybody in this room and even more.
Yeah, so
we'll
they
blast
have
that out.
scheduled 2 o'clock meet and greet at East Jackson High School in the Media Center on Sunday afternoon. So I'll be there and look forward to meeting him.
Great.
I spoke to his superintendent, and they did a very, very thorough search and background check, and I think you're going to be very, very pleased with this gentleman. He's going to be a great asset as a person as well as a coach.
No doubt.
Will the students be allowed to meet him also?
Oh, yes, this is an open meeting to the community, to any and everybody that wishes to be there.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you all.
Thank you so much. You can stay with us, or thank you for coming, and have a nice evening, whatever you choose to do.
You let me know when that happens.
Cross all your T's.
I got some people I got to talk to.
Okay. Okay. So next, as you know, over the past few months, I've been sharing with you some of the challenges that we have experienced with having a highly qualified sub in our classrooms when our teachers are out. And that really has been due to a couple of things. One, mainly is the number of subs that we have. And then 2, the number of days that they're limited, or the amount of hours that they're limited in being able to work. And so with your blessing, a couple months ago, we began to explore the options that we might have to help solve this problem. And so we put together a committee that included administrators, some of our finance department, and some of our human resources department. And I'm happy to say that we have what we believe would be a great potential partnership that would be cost neutral for us. And so I have asked our folks, Liz Strunk and Doug Snyder, to come from ESS, and they'll tell you briefly about how they can partner with us to help alleviate this problem and provide some very, very qualified substitutes in our classrooms that would include the substitutes that we already employ. So,
thank you, Dr. Blankenship. My name is Liz Strunk. I'm the Director of Business Development. And this is Doug Snyder. He is our Regional VP. He would be responsible for a lot of the program and overseeing it all. Basically, I make the promises and Doug delivers. So he's here to keep me honest. We put together a quick hit of the highlights of our program. Just to give you a little bit about ESS, we're working in 23 Georgia school systems. Started at 0 3 years ago when we joined up with the company, and then now we're up to 23. So growing tremendously over the past 3 years, but growing responsibly. And I think the reason why we're growing so quickly is because we're able to customize partnerships with each district. Each district has just different needs, whether it be lower fill rates that need to be raised, whether it be allowing their substitutes to have benefits, and as well as 401k. There's several different items that our program can offer. So what we've done is we work with Dr. Blankenship and several other faces in the room to create this package that will be cost neutral to the district while increasing your fill rates from around 70 to low 80%, and our average for the state is 98%. So what we did is we put together a quick hitter of the customized part of our package. Just to highlight a few items, we would recruit your current substitutes to come on board with us. The benefits for those substitutes is that they would be able to work every day with our program as opposed to keeping them under 30 hours a week, thus allowing them to receive benefits, health, from medical, vision, dental, or they can do a la carte if they just need dental and vision. All of that could be customized for each person. We have a 401k with company match in addition to that, which is a great advantage for the substitutes, as well as weekly pay. And that's huge. I mean, if people are getting those paychecks every week, it really does encourage them to take the jobs more often. And a couple other items is major concerns with districts when they make a partnership like this is making sure that they maintain control. And we were able to meet with several of your principals that do have a little bit of issues with their fill rates and answer a lot of their questions as far as maintaining control of their program. So basically, the principals will no longer have to deal with those last minute call-ins, you know, that fire drill that happens from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. before school starts. So what we'll do is we'll have an on-site management team that is here that will work together to fill those positions that are well in advance, as well as those fire drill positions. So I think that's an area that you'll really see as a headache reliever for your principals, your front office folks, as well as your teachers. So those are just a couple of the items that we have customized for the district to make sure that we are increasing that fill rate as well as keeping it cost neutral. So we'll open the floor to a couple questions if you guys have any for us.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, you're fine, go ahead.
So my question is your first bullet point, of course, which, how can you be cost neutral? And I'm looking at your back page. How?
Okay, just to kind of explain it, do you want to go into that a little bit?
Sure. So one of the ways that we are able to be cost neutral with the district is when we come in, there's a couple things to consider. The pay rates and all stay the same. So nothing changes for the pay on the employees. If you're at a 70% fill rate, we're going to take you up in the high 90s. There's going to be more cost. And we can help offset that cost and make it neutral by putting into place classified employees. Okay. The second half of the school year really becomes very, very challenging for schools to make an offer to a paraprofessional, as an example, because you're having to withhold to float on a 12-month calendar scale. We can bring them in and offer them what they want, you know, for the remainder of that school year. Over the summer, we have some districts that hire the employees on. Some keep them on permanent with us to maintain a savings. But a lot of school districts have been going this route because with the budgets being restricted and cost cutting, TRS has been going up every year. It went up 4 points last year. It's going up another point this past year. Healthcare has been on the rise. So it's putting more burden on the local funds for schools because all the benefits is all funded on the classified positions from local funds. And so this is an opportunity for the district to be able to partner with us, still maintain control of the hiring process, but we can administer the benefits and different things for the substitutes. So pretty much what we do is we look at where the district is at, taking you from this point to this point, and then what do we need to do to offset to get it to balance out to a zero.
So right now you guys have about 6 paraprofessional positions that are currently vacant within the district. I know that you guys have worked hard to fill those positions, however, it's been challenging. So what we would do is offer candidates for the principals to interview for those paraprofessional positions. And you'll see in the last page of the handout would be the cost difference if we were to hire that person as opposed to the district hiring that person. It would be about a $10,000 savings for us to have that person on our payroll. You guys would maintain control of all your current paraprofessional positions. Through attrition, we would help you hire positions for those vacant paraprofessional positions. And even at the bottom, we broke down how it would be if we were to offer them more money on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, to give you a little less savings, but to make the job a little bit more pleasing to the paraprofessional, a little bit more attractive to the paraprofessional.
And that goes for any classification, because we've done a couple of districts with that. One of the districts was really struggling for food services and custodians because the pay rate was so low. So we were able to get the pay rate up to a decent amount where we were able to recruit candidates in the community to come over and take a good job.
So what about a contract with you? Do we have to buy their contract from you if that's somebody we want to?
No.
They would work for us. Their paychecks would come from us. Their workman's comp would come through us, their training, but they would be.
Right, so they would be on their payroll, work for us. But if at any point we said, you know what, we want to hire this person onto our payroll,
you can have
then
them.
we can have them. Yeah.
At no penalty, which is big for what we do.
Right.
That's part of our partnership.
The beauty of it is, you know, our principals have really struggled with these positions to fill right now. And so that right there would make us cost neutral and maybe even a little bit of savings for the district. But we can decide as positions come up, we can decide with the principal, is this a position that you want to fill through ESS, or is this a position you want to fill through the district? And we'll partner that way if we move forward.
Because we don't hold a contract, so.
That's correct.
And then we listed several districts that we're working with currently in the back of your handout. So feel free to call any of them. We're very confident. We've never lost the school system in Georgia. We feel very confident about our customer service, and they can tell the story better than we can. So feel free to call them.
I have spoken with a number of those districts myself, and they have all been very, very pleased. In fact, to quote them and to quote Ms. Dodge, because she sat in on this, it's a no-brainer. So.
The employer's side cost has gone through the roof, especially
It really
for classified
has.
folks. That's the savings side.
You had mentioned an on-site team would be here. How many people and where would they be housed?
Well, the good thing about it is we have a really strong regional presence. So
we have a regional manager that covers the area. We have a recruiter, and then we'll be adding in an additional person that will be joining in the team. So we'll have a team of 3, and it'll rotate around. So typically what our folks do is, and how we're successful, a lot of people want to know how are we more successful than a district. A district a lot of times will post an ad on the website, run an ad in the paper, wait for people to come in. You know, I want to be a substitute. We go out in the community and get them. So at the ball games, we're president, football games, basketball games, open houses at the school. So we're actively recruiting substitutes in the community, along with bringing them over, training them to become a substitute teacher. So that's an important component of what we do. We're very involved with the community and the activities around. But to answer your question, we're in the schools constantly. So there's days that we'll be at the board doing training sessions for new substitutes, onboarding them, doing orientations, lining up interviews for positions that need folks for. The rest of the time, we're out in the community or we're out visiting the schools. So one of our team's job is to go around to each school, make sure the principals are taken care of, secretaries taken care of, everything going good, is there any long terms? We also ask about professional learning days, because that's one of the biggest hits in a sub-pool, is because you constantly have those PD days. So we build incentives for our substitutes to say, if you work, you know, these 4 days in the month, which are going to be our professional learning days, then we're going to do an extra $25 or $50 gift card for our substitutes for the people that work in those days in the month. So we do drawings like that. Also, Liz didn't mention, but all of our employees of our company, if you work 5 days in a calendar month, you're entered in for corporate prizes, which are iPods, iPads, gift cards.
And those are things that we can't do.
Yeah, so we do a lot of incentives for them. you know, to get the people to work in, because that's really what it's about. It's about having a good sub pool, but it's having them active all the time. We see a lot of schools that have, you know, 100 substitutes, but only 25 work on any given day. And so our job is to get them to work as much as possible.
So just to wrap up, and I appreciate you all sharing so much information and answering their questions. It does two things for our subs that they've asked for. It allows them to get paid weekly, and it allows them to work up to 40 hours if they
And get benefits.
And get benefits.
Yeah,
And
the biggie.
yes, and then you know, the other thing it does that I think is really, really important is it allows our principals. They're coming in as a support really for our principals, so that our principals. All of our positions are important, but our principals can then focus on hiring the certified teachers and vetting those candidates. Let them vet the candidates for the permanent positions that we are going to partner with them on. And then all the principal has to do is interview and decide who's the best fit for their school. So it really will help them in that case.
I know now that our classroom teachers, if they're gonna be out, they have to call in and get their own sub. How's that gonna,
It's gonna work, it'll work exactly the same way, but the beauty of it is because they use the same system that we already use, they will then bear the cost of that system.
Yeah.
So that is also a savings for us. So that's another piece. But you have some additional information in your packet, a spiral bound packet, so feel free to look through that. Again, I'm available. I think I'll make sure that you all have my cell phone number in case I don't happen to be at my desk to call and if you have any questions about that. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Safe travels. I know you're both going in different directions.
Lastly, we do have some job descriptions that are here for your review. I will point out one that is it's not a new position, but it is a new job description. Okay, so this one we'll need to lay on the table and we'll approve it at
February.
At the next month's meeting. That's the senior system engineer. That one should be on top. And then the rest of these are, you know, I mentioned earlier in the year that we were going to go through and update all of our job descriptions. They had not, many of them had not been reviewed in quite a while. So we have done that, and the primary changes to any job descriptions have been to add the physical requirements to them. And then we did have the technology resource specialist is a job description that we're, I'm sorry, not technology resource specialist, but system analyst is a combination of two descriptions. One that really we don't have anybody in that role, but those responsibilities need to be taken care of. So we've combined two job descriptions into one, and that will be the system analyst. So please look through those. What you have here are some nutrition job descriptions and technology job descriptions. I'm trying to do them in groups of like jobs. So feel free to call me with any questions on those as well. I don't think I beat the time, Mr. Nicholson. I don't get to talk very much, you know.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Blankenship. Anna is not here tonight, and so Aaron, we are thrilled that you're here. Thank you, and I'll let you share the great news that continues. This is some of the best news we've had in a couple of decades.
Absolutely. So we'll see if we're on the same page. The first thing I have is the general operating fund balance by month. And I know a lot of you are new. I still feel like the new kid on the block. So learning about government money, a lot of things are intended for a certain purpose, and that's how you have to use it. So with this general fund balance, what you're looking at is the money we use to run day-to-day. It pays the teacher's salaries, it turns the lights on, that type of thing. So right now, the end of December, we had well over 17 million in the general fund. And if you look at past years, there are a lot of years of negatives. So we're in a very good place there. The second page is the financial report. The top half shows you the revenues And this is the general fund also, so that's where those funds are coming from. And since we're at 50% of the year, we expect to see 50% on expenses, but revenue doesn't quite work like that for us, which is why we need that fund balance to be able to make it through before taxes come in. And so the bottom half is the expenditures, and we are at 50%, so we're right on target, staying within our budget that was approved by the board for this fiscal year. The last page is SPLOST, and it's a list of the amounts we've received each month. And at the bottom, it shows just kind of an analysis. So for the month of November, we received $637,000 in SPLOST revenue.
We normally look year over year, and you can see that substantial increase over.
Yes, our average is
2017
creeping
and
up gradually
it is.
every month, which is very exciting considering all the billing that we need to do and other projects that get in there also.
Chromebooks, for instance.
People always digging in your coffers, higher.
Yeah.
I think we're very, very good stewards of that, and I honestly appreciate it. And we are in the best place financially that we have been in many, many, many years from our general operating and the way that we've managed. So thank you to the board for supporting that work, and very, very good news. All right, I must say that it is 7 o'clock, and we have our facilities and operations update. And so, Mr. Gilbert, I'm wondering if we could share that with the at the end of this, because much of what we're going to probably be sharing. The one thing I'd like to ask before we leave maybe is let David take 10 seconds and share the buses are rolling.
10 seconds. 10 seconds.
The buses rolled.
So we do have all 45 buses that have arrived. They are fully equipped now with cameras and radios. That happened as of yesterday, and we're in the process of putting those on the road. I do want to say thank you to our board. You were instrumental in making that happen for us, and it is with great appreciation from our department for that. Thank you.
Are these the buses you bought in the summer?
No, well, I can't remember
It was
exactly when, but.
The lease agreement was approved
in
the spring, I think.
Spring, yeah, okay.
And it's actually do you want to explain the lease agreement again a little bit?
I can. Basically, it's a lease to purchase. It's stretched out over 5 years, and it's the equivalent to what we were going to look at buying between 8 and 10 buses per year.
We got all 45 on the front end, right?
Just 45 is all?
45, yes.
Regular ed.
Well, I thought I remember hearing more, that's why.
We do have 5 special ed buses, there's 50 total. We do have 5 special ed buses that will not arrive. We're hoping middle of January, but most likely the end of January. So yes, sir, there was 50 total in that package.
It's great. I'm sure y'all, the bus drivers have been delighted to get their buses how has that worked with choosing the ones that would get the new ones?
We had a process, and it's worked out well for us. The drivers appreciate it, but the students and the parents, I just can't tell you the appreciation that has come to our department from the parents and the students.
I haven't signed many Seymour's towing either. I mean, the money we're going to save on repairs and towing, oh my goodness, it's tremendous.
So what's your total bus fleet? Isn't it like 88 or something?
No, sir. We have, with these 50 buses, we're up to 156, 57 buses. We have, we're going through the process now of surplusing the buses that we will not keep in our spare fleet. We have pulled out training buses. We pulled out buses for coaches that drive sports activity trips that will remain on our lot, possibly at the schools, at East Jackson High, Jackson County Comprehensive High School, and the middle schools. And then we will keep sufficient spares, and also we figured in a 5-year growth plan so that as we grow in enrollment, then we can make sure that we're keeping up with that as far as buses also. So we don't get back in the position of not knowing whether we're gonna have a spare bus if one breaks down, which is what we faced until we got these 50 buses.
75% of the fleet was completely depreciated.
That's correct.
And in the past, we were only able to buy like 7 a year, and we had to stop that during the time that we were in such financial straits. And so we had really gotten behind replenishing.
Last year, and I will add too, we did receive 4 bond buses last year. This year, I don't know. We don't know. We're gonna do our superintendent's report in March. And then they take that and they have a formula that they use, the state uses to figure bond buses. Mr. Schofield is very intuitive in making sure that every county gets at least one. We accomplished that last year. We were fortunate to get 4. So we are moving in the right direction with replacing those buses during that period of time that we did not receive any buses at all, that we didn't purchase any. I think we got 1 from the state. So we're trying to get our 10-year and older buses off the road. However, we still have buses that are 12, 13, 14 years old, and they will remain in our fleet. As in February, you'll start seeing buses that are being surplus, or 96s, or 97s, and some 98s.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Appreciate that update, and we'll definitely want to, Josh, if we can update this whole crowd when we get over there on the West Jackson's almost finished, as well as the high school facility plans. We can talk about that. But that was a big part of the feedback that we got, as you know, from the stakeholder group. So with that, Ms. Wheeler, that's a big report, and I apologize for the amount of we have here for this board, but we do have a small request on the table for an action item, so I'll leave that up to you.
Oh, that's right, okay.
I think Mr. Lindsay's gonna let us forget that.
All right, well, you'll see on your second page that we have an action item to hire the new coach for East Jackson High School. And I hope everybody's ready to take a vote. Do I have a motion that we approve? Mr. Pettis?
Second.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All righty. Okay, motion passes.
Congratulations. Thank you very much for being here, Coach Lindsay. Appreciate it. We'll see you Sunday. And as we all know, we're going to reach those who plan to stay. Not all staff have to stay, and encourage you to get some rest if you'd like. But the board members are going to convene next door for our parent advisory council. So thank you all.